Hello, wonderful nonprofit rock stars. This is Tom Check with Greater Impact Consulting, where we help you spend less time in your database and more time on your mission. Today, we are continuing our deep dive into the Nonprofit Success Pack for Salesforce, and specifically the Relationships object. In a previous video, we talked about affiliations, where you can connect contacts to multiple accounts or organizations. And relationships allow us to do a similar thing, but they allow us to connect a contact to multiple other contacts. And this is really useful, especially when we're tracking the interplay between our stakeholders. Maybe if you're a youth serving organization, you want to track who's the mother versus the mother-in-law versus the stepmother versus the uncle versus the grandfather for one of your program recipients. Maybe you want to track who is the caseworker or the client for people within your organization if you're using kind of a service layout. Or maybe you want to track relationships between your donors because you know that a lot of your donors belong to the same country club, and man, wouldn't it be great to know that so that when you go to make a big ask, you can kind of lean on the people who are already giving major gifts to you to help their friends see the value of giving a major gift as well. All of that can be done with relationships so that your data is really clear and transparent, and that anybody who's using your Salesforce can see those things at a glance without having to go take a deep look for them. So what does this look like? Let's go ahead and get into Salesforce real quick. And if I open up a contact, I should see on my related lists the relationship box. If you don't see that, you're possibly using a different page layout the Nonprofit Success Pack comes with, and to resolve that you would just need to go ahead and add the related list to the page layout you're using. If that's all Greek to you, go ahead and check out our other videos on changing page layouts, or go check out a trailhead straight from Salesforce that'll train you on how to set that up. Once we're here and I see this relationships option, I can go ahead and click on New. And let's say that I want to notate that Tom Check's sister is Courtney Check. And I go ahead and hit Save. Now it tells me that, and if I click on View All, I can see a little bit more information here. Now I can see that Courtney Check is Tom Check's sister. Great, nothing too crazy so far. The nice part about Salesforce is that I can create what are called gender-specific reciprocal relationships, and sister is one of them. So if I were to go click on Courtney Check, I don't want to see that Tom Check is her sister because that's not true. Tom Check is a guy. So over here it automatically created a reciprocal relationship that says that Tom Check is Courtney Check's brother, right? So it flip-flopped sister and brother, and that's really useful. If I were to go in and create a new relationship here, and I were to say, let's go. If I were to go to somebody that doesn't have a gender listed on their contact, we'll say John Doe. I believe we've got them marked as either non-binary or we don't have it listed. Great, so gender not listed on John Doe. And if I go to related, and I go to create a new relationship, and I say that John Doe's sister is Courtney Check. What we'll see is that we see exactly what we would expect here. Courtney Check is John Doe's sister, but if I go to Courtney Check, I'll now see that Tom Check is her brother. And because John Doe doesn't have a gender associated with them, it says John Doe is Courtney Check's sibling. And that's a really nice way to be able to track all of that without having to worry about putting the wrong information in there that confuses your employees as they use this information. Sometimes gender doesn't matter to you, and that's totally fine, right? Like there's plenty of relationships that don't require gender. For those, you don't have to set up the reciprocal relationship, or you can set it up so that it's a non-gender specific relationship. So that was a lot of words. What does that look like? If you were to open up your Nonprofit Success Pack settings, and to do that you just click on the app launcher, type NPSP settings, and click on NPSP settings, you'll get taken to a page that looks like this. And on the left-hand side here, you've got relationships. And we're looking at these three here: relationships, relationship reciprocal settings, and relationship auto creation. If you go to relationships, this is probably not something you need to edit. The one thing we are curious about here is to make sure that this gender field is set up if you're going to be using gender-specific relationships. If you're not, don't worry about it. But if you are going to be using gender-specific relationships, go ahead and make sure that the right gender field is selected here. By default, with NPSP, it should be. Our next thing we're going to look at is our relationship reciprocal settings here. And this is where we tell Salesforce what those gender-specific pieces are. So if I mark somebody as a brother, right, that's the type that they pick. Then if it's a male, they're going to select brother. If it's a female, they're going to create a reciprocal sister relationship. And if they don't have one listed, they're going to create a reciprocal sibling relationship. That's how all of this works. And that's pretty neat because we only have to set that up once, and then it uses that from there on out. Now, sometimes you'll want a relationship that doesn't necessarily have gender-specific setups, but is still reciprocal. So for instance, you might want caseworker and client. So I'm going to go back over to my development org because this was a different org. If I go over here, I can set up a new reciprocal relationship. And when the box pops up, I can say caseworker. And male, female, or neutral doesn't really matter. This is going to be client. So I'll just paste client into all of those. Create reciprocal relationship. And then I need to create it the other way as well so that I can select either caseworker or client in my type box. So for that, I just do the exact opposite where I go in and I select client. And for this, it's caseworker on all three of these. And I create a reciprocal relationship. Great, so now I see both of those in there. And if I wanted to, I could go in and I could create a reciprocal relationship for Courtney Check. And let's say that I want to say John Doe is her client. Now, we'll run into our first problem right here. We don't see it in the list here. And this is where most of us get tripped up our first time into creating relationships. Because it's not enough to just create the reciprocal relationship. We have to add these field options to the type box so that Salesforce knows to allow them. To do that, we can go ahead and click on Setup and go into our go to Setup. It'll open up in a new window. And then we need to go into our Object Manager and find our relationship object. And from here, we'll select Object Manager. And within this box, we will search for relationship. Once we're here, we'll go to Fields and Relationships. And we'll find the type box, because that's what we're looking for when we create a new relationship. We're looking at this type field to tell us what our options are. So if I go in here and I just quick find type and click on this, and this will give me the pick list that shows me all the options that my users have to create relationships. And here they all are. These are the defaults. And I can go in and I can create new, and I just need to add both of the relationship types that I just entered into the reciprocal relationships. So one of them is client, and one of them is caseworker. If I hit save, I'll see them now in the list, and if I need to reorder that list, I would do it here so that maybe caseworker and client show up higher than the very bottom, because maybe that's actually the most important relationship in my organization. So I can go in and I can select reorder, scroll all the way down, select those two, move them to the top. Great. So once we do that, if I go in here and I refresh the page, That's always really important because Salesforce a lot of times caches the options that are available, and you have to refresh the page in order to get the new options to show up. Now that we've loaded, let's go ahead and create a new relationship. And let's say that Courtney Check's client is Alex Bond. So it's up here at the top since we removed it. Reordered it, not removed. Let's hit save. And now, because we created the reciprocal relationship, if I go in and I click on Alex Bond, right now it says Dr. Alex Bond is Courtney Check's client. If I click on Alex Bond, we should see that Courtney Check is Alex Bond's caseworker. And there it is. So that's the power of setting up reciprocal relationships. They can be gender specific, they don't have to be, but they do allow you to save some time and energy and really make it clear what the relationship is by saying if one person is X and the other person is Y, create that X-Y relationship on each side so that it's really clear. Now, what if it doesn't matter? What if it doesn't matter who is who and there's no reciprocity, as it were? What if you're just looking to create a relationship like a country club buddy? Great. For that, you don't have to create a reciprocal relationship. You just have to go into this list, click New, and let's say country club members, member friend. Maybe it's a golf buddy, maybe it's somebody that was a teammate, these types of things that don't necessarily have a reciprocal aspect to them. So now that I've got that in there, if we stick with Alex Bond and I refresh the page, again, always really important to refresh that page. Now when I go in and I create a new relationship, I should have the option for country club buddy in there. So let's say Alex Bond is Marin Ridout's country club friend. I didn't reorder it, so it's going to be all the way down at the bottom, country club member friend. If I go ahead and hit save, what I should see is that it's country club member friend on both Dr. Alex Bond and on Marin Ridout, because we didn't create any reciprocal relationships. It's the same on both sides. So if you're not dealing with things that have to change based on which contact you're looking at, it's the same on both sides. You don't have to go through the trouble of creating that reciprocal relationship. So that's the basics of relationships within Salesforce. Basically, they help you create a lot of transparency for who's connected to who and how. You can also, of course, add descriptions in there. I'm sure you saw that box where you can really fine-tune and make clear what that relationship is like. Maybe for one of your youth participants, you want to notate that while Johnny lives in his stepmom's household, his foster mom is this person, or vice versa, I guess would make more sense. You can add descriptions about how your donors are connected in there, in addition to that actual relationship type. And it's all done in those two places. Relationship settings for reciprocal relationships in Nonprofit Success Pack settings, NPSP settings. And if you go into Setup Object Manager, find the relationship object and go to the type field, that list for your pick list determines what options show up when you're actually creating a new relationship. So that's all I've got for you today. Check out the resources below if you want to find the trailheads and NPSP documentation that'll teach you more about how to do this. And until next time, stay awesome and keep creating a greater impact in your community.